The study of ancient civilizations is going high-tech. Today on Idaho State of Mind, we explore how anthropologists are using high-tech machines to write a script of the past. But first, bullying is a major problem in the U.S. 71% of students report bullying is an ongoing problem. We talk to the experts about what you should do and what to teach your children. Idaho State of Mind starts right now. Thank you for joining us on Idaho State of Mind, where we endeavor to educate the citizens of Idaho on the state of higher education. I'm Libby Howe. This is a production of Idaho State University, and we are proud that the majority of the show's content is created by ISU Mass Communication students. And our top story today, some people think bullying is a rite of passage, to learn from it, to deal with it and overcome. But recent studies show bullying is getting worse. 160,000 children miss school every day because they're scared of being bullied. Idaho State of Mind Summer Giak joins us in the studio with more. Summer, I had no idea it was that prevalent.
It's actually very serious, Libby. 1 in 7 children from kindergarten through 12th grade is either a bully or has been a victim. That means that 56% of all students have witnessed a bullying crime.
The last text message Julia Zika received from her son stated, "Please forgive me. Remember that it wasn't your fault. Always remember that I love you and that I'll always love you." Ryan had dreams of becoming a Navy pilot, getting his Eagle badge from Scouts, and helping others. His family was transferred from Spokane, Washington to Pocatello, Idaho. This is where the bullying started.
There was one party in particular that I remember that he'd gone to towards the end of his 10th grade year, where he was like dragged out of the house by several of that more like athlete type kids at school. They drug him out in the snow, like several of them, and beat him up.
Here his mom goes through the letters and notes from loved ones who felt like Ryan had touched their lives. Being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes along with bipolar disorder and rheumatic fever, his dreams started to fade. But he found a new dream of trying to help kids like him who were struggling with their sexuality. Ryan died by suicide on January 14th, 2011.
He'd kind of been there for a lot of kids, and it just was something he ended up being really good at. And it's kind of sad because so many of them would have been there to be there for him that night when he felt so alone. He just didn't realize how many people cared, how many lives he touched.
Idaho State University is also trying to bring awareness through children's readers theater titled Bully. The theater production includes 5 short stories of different ways children are bullied and what to do. Each story is fun and brought to life through poems, music, acting, and dancing. One actress, Hannah Ballou, plays a little girl who gets teased for reading and being smart.
In high school, I was bullied pretty good, and I know that obviously I hated it, and it was awful, but I don't know, I think this really will, if it gets through to one kid, it's worth it.
Another actor, Adam Mendez, who used to be a bully, is now fighting against bullying.
If I make fun of some people, it makes me feel a little better, but I found out that's the wrong thing to do, because sooner or later, someone's going to come around that you make fun of the wrong person, and they're going to put you to your place.
It doesn't have to be the end of the world, even though we sometimes act like it is.
Ryan was one of the 282,000 victims that faces bullying every month.
All his life, ever since he was a little kid, ever since I can remember, all he wanted to do was find a way to help people, like to give back.
Julie continues this legacy through Ryan's Rainbow Connection, an organization to help the lesbian and gay youth connect with the right resources and to give them a place where they will never feel alone.
The number 1 reason for bullying is appearance. The second most common reason, a person's actual or perceived gender expression. Bullycide is a term used to describe suicide as a result of bullying. According to a new study from the Yale School of Medicine, there is a strong connection between being bullied and suicide. Libby?
Thank you, Summer. Well, the stats we've been hearing illustrate just how serious of a situation bullying really is. Joining us today is Dr. Virginia Allen with ISU's Counseling Department. Dr. Allen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Just so we start out kind of on an even playing field, everybody knowing what we're talking about, let's define what bullying is. When does it cross that line of bullying?
Well, bullying has existed for always, and oftentimes it's just kind of messing around. But bullying really becomes bullying when there's a power over someone, where it is intimidation, physical violence, and it's over a period of time, and the victim feels victimized, and that defines bullying.
Okay, so if it's a one-time thing where one child is mean to another child, not as serious as a continued feeling of
That's exactly right.
that they're
That's
going
exactly
to be
right.
hurt in some way. How can you tell if your child's being bullied? Because they don't always come out and say, "Mom, Dad, this this other kid is being mean to me."
Well, it's all about behavior change. People don't, and particularly children, don't change their behaviors just because they want to. So a child that does well in school, that seems to be going along nicely, and all of a sudden stays in their room more, is failing grades, doesn't want to take phone calls, those kind of behavior changes should be red flags. And a parent, of course, their ultimate goal is to have a good communication with their child so that their child feels like they can disclose bullying to their parent. But if not, the parent should be able to pick up on these kind of red flag behavior changes.
Okay. So hopefully you've set up that pattern of talking to your child that they feel comfortable. But if they don't feel comfortable, just keep an eye out then.
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay. So you figure out that your child's being bullied. What do? Do you tell them to ignore it? Do you go out with guns blazing, so to speak? What's the best way to
Well,
take care of it?
I think the human response is maybe you should punch them back, or I'll take care of it for you, and really those aren't the greatest responses. So the first thing I think you need to do is talk to your child and find out if they in fact feel victimized, or if this is something that you have made into something more than it really is. Then, if they're in school, I think that contacting the school is appropriate. Probably one of the best people to contact is the school counselor. They're the people that are well trained in dealing with bullying, both for the victim and the bullied. And so I'd contact the school counselor, and the school counselor will set in motion the response to bullying the school has, so the principal, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
If they're not in school, contacting the child's parents seems reasonable. Not making threats, but to have a discussion about what's going on and how you can resolve this issue.
And a lot of time bullying doesn't even necessarily happen at school anymore. That kind of used to be the main place, but with the internet and
and that's one of the problems. And bullying by proxy is really a safe way to do it. So I can go on the internet and I can pick on someone and really not feel responsible for my actions. And so it's become a real problem. Of course, parents that aren't checking what's going on with their child on the computer are fools for parents in this day and age. You have to keep track of that stuff.
Okay. And I know a lot of times parents feel like maybe they're invading their child's personal space, but it's really for their own well-being.
Well, too bad. I mean, as a parent, you have to invade personal space sometimes for your child.
Great. Okay, now this is one that we don't talk about a lot, but what do you do if you find out your child is the one that's being the bully?
Right. There's two players in this. Well, sometimes more, but basically two players. The player that wants power over someone and the victim. The victim is their role has been well defined, and the therapy that goes with it and the actions that go with it have been pretty well defined. But the bully oftentimes is only punished, and after the punishment, then they're let on their own devices. So really the bully needs as much as or more attention than the victim. Why does this child, or why does this adult feel like they need to have power over someone to feel good about themselves? That's your ultimate question. So they need as much or more counseling, therapy, help, not just punishment, but something beyond punishment as well.
So just the punishment in and of itself isn't going to take care of the problem?
Probably not. Probably not. I mean, the punishment could probably be bad enough that you could scare them into acting correct, but research has clearly shown that is ineffective.
Okay.
Thus, the recidivism rates in prison. Right. And so the bully really needs to be dealt with.
Okay, in some kind of form of counseling, talking it through, getting
Yes.
to the root of the problem then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Dr. Virginia Allen, thank you so much for joining us. This is a topic we could go on and on about. There's so many different issues about it, but we thank you so much for sharing your insight about it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
And on another note, when it comes to students furthering their education and actually finishing a 4-year college degree, Idaho is in the bottom 10 states. There are many reasons why, but today we're looking at fear of the unknown. Many Idahoans are first-generation college students, and neither the student nor their parents know how to get started in what seems like a long and confusing process. Idaho State of Mind's Lisa Santos demystifies the process for us. Take a look.
Only about 49% of high school graduates go on to college in the state of Idaho. Why is this? There are a number of reasons why students hesitate to apply for higher education. A few of the common myths are, college is too expensive. If you don't have the grades or test scores, you won't get in. If you don't know what you want to major in, you should wait to apply. And lastly, many people believe that because they know of a few successful people that didn't further their education, that it obviously is not important for them to do so.
Sometimes people think, they hear the word college, it's got to be an impossible thing. It is not an impossible thing. It takes work, it takes focus, but it can be accomplished.
Everybody knows that college is expensive, but there is financial assistance for everybody in the form of scholarships, grants, and loans. All students need to do is apply. If you don't know exactly what you want to major in, that's okay. There are advisors that will help make a schedule for you. All you need to do is simply ask for help.
I was nervous because I didn't really know what I was doing at all. Like, I didn't know where to go for online. I didn't know like what websites to go to, and I didn't know the process or anything like that. But definitely talking to people helped that out a lot.
When preparing to apply for college, you should ask for all the help you can get from people like your high school counselor and college admission officers. By starting your preparation in high school, you can get a head start by taking AP and honors classes for college credit. There is a college for everybody, but you will have to do some research to find your perfect fit, and taking a visit is never a bad idea. Most schools have a score range for the SAT and the ACT, so taking them more than once usually helps improve your score. Be as clear and prompt with your applications as possible. Remember, most schools have application deadlines. Fill out the FAFSA form to apply for federal financial aid. And lastly, apply for scholarships.
I think really the biggest myth of colleges and universities is that it's not for everyone. I would like to say that it really can be for everyone. It's finding your niche, and it's finding the right degree and the right major for you.
Lisa Santos, Idaho State of Mind.
And don't think you've lost your chance to go on to college because you didn't finish high school. Students with GEDs are also encouraged to apply to universities. People who have volunteered abroad will often tell you it's hard to leave the people they have helped, especially after friendships have grown. It is especially difficult to keep those connections up when friends are halfway around the world. A Boise physician found herself in this exact situation, but she didn't let the miles keep her away from the children of a Ugandan orphanage. Idaho State of Mind's Elaine Washam has the story.
The goal is to get health profiles of over 500 children in the orphanage and then have them screened for serious diseases like malaria and HIV.
Our hearts were just captivated by the needs of the children there, and a lot of it was medical and health care. So when we came back to Boise, we just started doing the networking, connections with people, and had a groundswell of response, and particularly with ISU.
Duchette has started a branch of the grassroots organization Be the Change, which is run by her brother. As of last year, ISU Meridian has become a major part of this branch, thanks to the help of HIV and viral hepatitis educator Judy Thorne.
When you make a trip like this and you meet these incredibly resilient children in particular, you make a self-promise that you won't forget them, and they ask you not to forget them. So it can't be a quick journey, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. It has to be a commitment.
And that is exactly what she is doing. With a second trip this year, she helped Duchette start accomplishing her medical profiling goals. In the future, they hope more and more ISU faculty and students join them in their effort. But bringing students along isn't something completely new.
Gaining a better appreciation of how similar we are, and just purely out of, chance, we're in totally different situations.
You got to get out in the world to see what's going on. Like me, Luke, and Chelsea all got to find out a lot more about ourselves.
The biggest shock was like their diet and their clothing and things like that, that every human being should be properly taken care of.
All of these students help with the paperwork for the medical files, but more importantly, they made connections with the children. All three said by experiencing a world outside of their own, they learn more about themselves. As the project grows, Thorne wanted to let everyone know, in this grassroots group, every donated dollar goes to the medical effort. At the Flying M Coffee Shop in Boise, Elaine Washam, Idaho State of Mind.
You often hear of archaeologists digging up this or that, but what happens after the artifact or organic matter is recovered? Today, we're taking a look at how several scientists in Idaho are uncovering the mysteries of the past. First up, one ISU anthropologist is uncovering the past with clues found in ancient teeth. Idaho State of Mind's Chris Cole joins us in the studio. Chris, these teeth are hundreds of years old. What exactly can they tell us?
Well, Libby, they can actually tell us several things. Different wear marks on the teeth tell us what type of activities they were used for. Particles in the scars of the teeth can tell us what food they ate. But if you take it a step further, this information can tell us if they were mostly fishers or hunters. Take a look.
Sugarcane is a tropical grass. It has a very distinctive signature in its isotopes. Or were they eating something like a sweet potato, which looks very different in terms of its isotopes. And when you put that together from the skeletal data, especially when we have the microfossil data as well, then you can really put together a complete picture of, yeah, we think we know what these people are eating.
That's right. People hundreds of years ago on Easter Island were consuming more land-based protein than water-based protein. That's just one of the countless details found by looking at the teeth of ancient inhabitants of Rapa Nui, more commonly known as Easter Island. Dudgeon was most recently on Easter Island in 2009. In these images, you can see some of the incredible artifacts, huge stone carvings that are their own mystery. While they were gathering the remnants of the inhabitants, they found that the teeth were in remarkably good condition, while the bones were simply dust.
The excavations are just tremendous. You dig down in the sand like that, it's like cutting into a layer cake. You really get the history.
Once they had gathered the teeth and other remnants, the team headed back to the States to scan and document. A time-consuming and meticulous process.
We did a DNA analysis of, well, we did it of 100 people, but we ended up getting about 60 that turned out to be pretty good data. And we can show that not only was Easter Island not settled by just a few people, but we can actually see people coming from the farthest reaches of the Pacific to get there, to actually land on Easter Island.
After studying the teeth of the past, they compared them with teeth extracted from local people.
It's really fascinating because in the past, people ate kind of a more varied diet, probably things that were coming out of their natural environment. A couple of samples that we had that had a lot of this kind of tartar built up on it, we didn't find anything like that in it. And we figured this is somebody who just probably ate frozen pizza their whole life. They never ate anything that was like a vegetable that would have left some stuff in their teeth.
And if you aren't into studying teeth, don't worry. Dudgeon says this type of work isn't just for bioarchaeologists.
The kind of things that archaeologists do in investigatory techniques is the same kind of thing that crime scene analysts do, that forensics experts do, that people who study traumatic events, big events like earthquakes, things like that, when they're trying to find the evidence within it. It's the same kind of things that we do in the lab. And so I think there's a lot of applicability outside of this research realm of archaeology. There's very practical aspects to it as well.
Local police stations have asked for Dudgeon's help identifying evidence on a few occasions. Now, one more interesting fact, through DNA testing of the teeth, they found that 3 of the 13 people were related. Libby?
So interesting. Thank you, Chris. Dr. Dudgeon is also beginning work with the Roman DNA Project. He will be using the advanced scanning technology to scan the teeth of Roman slaves. His research is going to be focused on their consumption of lead and if that could possibly have been a factor in the collapse of the Roman Empire. Amazing. The Clovis people were believed to be highly mobile nomadic hunters, never settling in one place, following herds of mammoths, mastodons, and ancient bison. But an excavation starting in 1998 1948 at the Galt site in Texas, evidence was found suggesting Clovis people lived at the site for extended periods of time, spanning over 300 years. One ISU professor is now working with a team to make an online repository of objects from Galt. The goal? Make this plethora of information available to the masses.
But the idea of having the major Clovis assemblage that exists available for lots of people to use, I'm totally in favor of that.
So we're addicted to Twitter, we're addicted to cell phones. You can sit and do analysis while you're watching a basketball game, looking at primary information.
An ISU professor is helping solve a mystery 1,200 years in the making. The mystery surrounds these tiny beads found at an archaeological site near Mexico City 10 years ago. The site was considered the birthplace of the gods by the Aztecs. The size of the beads range from an 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch in diameter. The beads are made from a type of obsidian. Now this means it is extremely difficult to make one without breaking it.
The fact that they're so hard to make, to me, suggests that even to the ancient people, they had a high value.
Jim Woods is trying to replicate how pre-Aztecans made the beads. The act of trying to duplicate any artifact helps scientists understand the creation better than they could by just looking at them. With the help of a microscope, Woods discovered the hole in the middle of each bead is not drilled through. In fact, each hole is punched out. Woods recently joined us in the studio to show how this may have been accomplished. Take a look.
They started with a obsidian blade, and this would be a real typical one here. And these came off of a core, and so this core is held in the feet with this flat end facing the tool maker, and you push on the end with a special tool, and these little blades pop off. So the way they started the process was they had to break these into the rectangular pieces. And I'm going to use this little piece of deer antler, and it'll be hard for you to see against this dark cloth. But they just took the edge of the flake and made a little shallow notch, just like a notch in an arrowhead. That is like scoring a piece of window glass. It weakens it. And I'm going to hold this in my hand and I'm going to bend it and snap the blade. And I broke off a piece. So I can make a punched bead every time if I pre-drill it. I can't do it every time if I just do this. I could see where the punch had hit because it makes a little tiny crack in the glass, and by using the microscope with the proper lighting underneath, you can see through this clear glass and see the cracks. I hold the blank in there just with my bare fingers, and I see where it's going to hit. And what I usually will do is I will place a mark on here with a Sharpie. So I've made a target, a little X. I know that's not very sophisticated, but it's what works. I'm going to lift this up just a little bit and let it drop. I'm going to lift it up a little bit more. So what I have to do is I have to learn how to get the cone to punch out in 6 or 7 tries. If I get beyond that, if I go to 8 or 9 or 10, each one beyond that is increasing the chance of breakage. This is one of the blanks that I was able to get a successful cone punched out of it. You usually put a small piece of leather in the palm of your hand, and you take a pointed tool, can be a piece of antler like this or bone, and you just start nibbling away. And so there in just like a minute or so, I've started to create the round shape of the bead.
As you can see, the process is far from perfect. Woods reminds us this is still a theory until anthropologists are able to actually find the remains of one of the actual devices. His next step is to replace the metal point you saw with the material the pre-Aztecs would have had access to. As the state-designated provider of health professions education, Idaho State University brings us Healthy State of Mind, a segment dedicated to all things health-related. The popularity of Greek yogurt is sweeping the country, although it has been popular in Europe for centuries. Dr. Linda Rankin joins us in the studio with a look at Greek yogurt. Linda, what is the difference between Greek and American-style yogurt?
Libby, both types of yogurt are made by fermenting milk with live bacteria cultures. The only difference is that Greek yogurt is strained to remove the liquid whey, which is why it's thicker. Nutritionally, Greek yogurt does contain nearly twice as much protein because it's a more concentrated product. It's also lower in carbohydrates because some of the carbohydrates, especially lactose, are removed in the whey. Greek yogurt is more expensive because it takes more milk to produce the same volume of yogurt. But you can make your own Greek-style yogurt at home. Take a kitchen strainer and line it with several coffee filters or cheesecloth. Spoon in your favorite American-style yogurt, cover it with plastic wrap, and refrigerate overnight. It's quick, easy, and much less expensive. Libby.
Thanks, Linda. Now, from my personal experience, it's really important that you read the label. The first time I took a bite of Greek yogurt, I thought, no wonder people think Greek yogurt is so great. It was like eating ice cream. It was super creamy. Then I looked at the label and realized it was the full fat variety and not the non-fat that I usually buy. And as far as fat content was concerned, it was like eating ice cream. So always remember to make sure you check those labels. There's lots of really good non-fat varieties as well. The U.S. is in the midst of a senior citizen boom as 79 million baby boomers approach retirement. Every day, more than 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. Coming up on the next episode of Idaho State of Mind, it's all about aging. We'll look at common health issues facing seniors and how to grow old gracefully. We'll also be talking to the sandwich generation, those 40 to 60-year-olds sandwiched between caring for their children and for their aging parents. And that's all for this episode of Idaho State of Mind. Thank you for joining us. From the campus of Idaho State University, I'm Libby Howe. We'll see you next time.